Tomorrow's election could determine who will control Congress. The candidates are in the final sprint in their districts while clashing on the major issues driving this year's midterms. CBS 2's Skylar Henry joins me now live from Capitol Hill with more on the balance of power. Skylar, what are the races to watch and why?
Hey, Cindy, good morning to you. Well, let's break out the map, if you will, and focus in on some of the key Senate races that we're paying attention to. Let's start out west in Arizona for one, where you have the incumbent there, the Democrat Mark Kelly, going up against the Republican candidate Blake Masters. That is seen as a toss-up right now. The latest polling has it somewhere around 48% for both candidates, so that is certainly something interesting to watch. We should also point out that the Libertarian in that race, Mark Tudor, recently dropped out and announced his support for Masters. Kelly said that he was not threatened about that, so that'll be an interesting race to watch. They've talked about several issues, immigration and border security for one. Also talking about the state of the economy, that being really the main focus for voters right now. So I think that'll be interesting. If you look to the east, pay attention to that Pennsylvania Senate race, obviously between John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz. That one is another tightly contested race, considered a toss-up as well. We should also point out the amount of money that has been poured into that race from a political advertising perspective. We're talking about some $300 million in political ads. We should also point out that Oprah Winfrey herself came out to endorse John Fetterman. A little ironic given the fact that she was the one who sort of assisted Dr. Oz become a national name in his television career. So that is something to watch for as well. We're also paying attention to the Senate race down in Georgia with former football star Herschel Walker going up against the incumbent Raphael Warnock. That race also considered a toss-up, and despite the negative headlines against the former Heisman Trophy winner in terms of his abortion rights issue, perspective and allegations, that really doesn't appear to be affecting him in the polls, as those margins are tightening as well. What's important to note there, especially in that Georgia race, that if neither candidate gains more than 50% of the vote, then that race goes off into a runoff. And we should point that out because election officials have said all along that to expect patience, if you will, as they have to take their time to tally all of their votes. And so we may not know the balance of power here on Capitol Hill for some days, maybe even weeks.
Skylar, as candidates are making closing arguments, any themes that you're seeing in their messages?
Absolutely. So let's talk about that Pennsylvania race with Oz and Fetterman. They're focusing on crime and the economy. I talked about the race in Arizona, border security, immigration, also hot button issues. But I think the main sort of issue point perspective that many of these candidates have been taking on is just really the state of the economy. President Biden has come out to say that the state of the democracy is at stake on this ballot as well. But many voters have come out to say that the economy is really where they're focused on right now. Inflation, rising numbers at the pump, rising numbers at the grocery store. And so I think many candidates will sort of focus their rhetoric, especially today, on what they'll do to try to address that.
Skylar, lots of concerns about election safety and security. What's the latest there?
Yeah, so let's talk about the most recent incident involving Arizona Republican gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake. Her campaign office says that they received a suspicious white powdery substance. Federal officials tell CBS News that that happened early Sunday morning. No one was injured, but they are investigating. Now, this is something that we should point to because a federal intelligence bulletin sent out in recent weeks say that they are on a heightened alert for this sort of extremism across the board, no matter if it's far left or far right, and that is something that they're going to pay attention to. We should point out that election officials have said all along that they are going to try to make sure that this is the most safe and secure election of all time. Now they're just asking for people to be patient and, of course, be tolerant while they do their work.
Skylar Henry reporting from Washington. Thank you, Skylar.